You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Welcome to the Boss Hog Liberty Podcast. This is episode number 167 of East Central Indiana's favorite podcast. I'm Jeremiah Morrell. Today I am joined by producer Chris Guffey.
Hello.
We're going to call him a co-host because he's been here 3 out of the last 4 weeks. Zach Burcham is here.
Glad to be back.
And who are you introducing, Zach? You got to do Dakota's job because he is on assignment. His assignment, as given to him by Audrey, is he has to be a dad tonight.
Well, I'm going to introduce to my left Pat Bremer. He runs the small trailer enthusiast.com page. It's like small campers if you're not into like big 40 footers. And then I'll let you introduce to your right because I'm not sure if I got his name down.
So it's Rusty Eckstein.
And you're with Mount Comfort RV.
Mount Comfort RV, yeah, in Greenfield, Indiana.
You guys don't claim Mount Comfort, huh?
You know, I don't know. Is it a city? Is it a town?
I don't know. It's in your company name.
It is a strange thing that where your address is probably technically Greenfield.
Our address is Greenfield. I'm not sure Greenfield knows that we're in Greenfield, but we're Greenfield.
Oh, trust me. If somebody, this is normally kind of a political show. Not tonight, hopefully. We're going to more of an economic show and a fun show. But, if somebody collects taxes from you guys, they know that you're
they know it then.
Yeah. They don't forget your name then. They know.
They know then.
So Rusty is here, and you, if you guys drive through on I-70 from Indianapolis out here to Boss Hog Land, they're on the right side or the south side of the road, with all those diesel pushers lined up on the right on the money row.
Yeah, and that's crazy. Right now normally we have 500 plus RVs in stock, and I think we're gonna get to it later. Yep. But right now it's like less than 250.
It's incredible. And a boat. Insane. Did you sell the boat yet?
We got another boat. We sold that boat. We got another boat.
Yeah, you guys always have like interesting stuff in that far corner. It's like that's kind of the oddball.
That's the point.
That's the oddball stuff.
It's like when we get the trucks in on trade and the boats, and we throw it out there in the corner.
That's the category of weird shit Rusty took. They shouldn't have that they have to get rid
of. Usually I call Pat, but
yeah.
Normally I'm not commuting right now. I'm working from home, but it sounds like that you're getting a lot of window shopping based on the construction on 70. So people have a little bit more time to check out what's going on there.
People are just stuck in traffic.
It's been going on. We've been there for 14 years and it's been going on for 14 years.
As a guy in the road construction industry, I have really enjoyed the work out on Mount Comfort Road and I-70.
There's a lot more to come.
We've rebuilt a lot out there. All right. So this show is about our lives in rural Indiana. We're here to push your boundaries and make you think as individuals. Sometimes we'll provoke you. Other times we'll make you laugh, but hopefully you will always learn something new. All right. We're going to double your pay if you get this right, Zach.
Oh, that's exciting. Double and zero. So we're going to do our Patreon thank yous. If you guys know, we just had the Patreon portion. We kind of chat, talk about our lives a little bit. And we get to, if you contribute, help pay the bills, keep the air conditioning. It's nice and comfortable in here tonight.
Rusty came in and said, man, it's cold in here.
Yeah, it feels good in here. Yeah, back before you guys got the nicer thermostat, it was always pretty warm in here or cold.
Somebody have to remember to stop in and turn the air down. Now we got the Nest and it's nice.
Yeah. So got to thank all the people that contribute. And of course, if you contribute $50 or more a month, you get your name mentioned every episode. And so we got thanks to Chris Lamb, Christy Avery, Jonathan Phillips, and of course, all the way from Hawaii is Craig DaCosta. We also have the T-Chip stores, which is T-Chip, which is BHOL 1, 2, or 3. Guffey's going to post those links in the chats for everybody to catch those. He should have been doing that last week when he wasn't here, but he had nothing better to do. And of course,
do we need to work through this? I know you've mentioned this 5 times since I've seen you. So let's talk about the abuse you took, and maybe we'll just work this out right now.
Yeah. Well, if people don't know, I'm 37. I think a couple weeks ago, Guffey said I was 45.
I'm pretty sure you look 45.
So Guffey said he couldn't make it last week. It was date night. So through the entire Patreon portion, I was just taking verbal abuse about how old I look.
Hold on. Was it verbal abuse? Because I was typing.
It was written abuse.
Written abuse.
See, your story's already changing.
I think at this point he hears your voice when you type.
Well, then I saw you on Friday night and it turned into verbal abuse because you just kept going.
Oh, yeah, because then I saw you and your brother.
Yes.
He's far better looking than you are.
He's less stressed. He doesn't have children.
Definitely not identical twins. Your brother, he has like 7 cats. That's a family.
Yeah, well, none of his cats have destroyed his televisions like my child destroys my televisions. But, so yeah, and we're also looking for advertisers. So if anybody's interested, I don't have any of the information, but if you contact Jeremiah or Dakota, they'll give you some of the metrics.
Hit up my DMs and we'll work through. We can work through something.
Slide
reasonable.
into Jeremiah's DMs and he'll give you some information that advertisers would be interested in and what kind of reach you can expect through the Boss Hog of Liberty.
I was reminded today how easy I am if you hit me in the DMs, because that's what my wife Sarah did, and apparently we started dating 4 years ago today. So,
I looked, I think, and you're in 7 of my most recent 10 conversations in Facebook Messenger. So,
yeah, I don't hide.
yeah,
I'm easy to be tracked down, and I also encourage you to make some more friends. If I'm
there's a combination of different people in every one of these conversations. Like none of them are the same people.
Oh shoot! All right, so the grand plan today, our idea for this show is twofold. One, we didn't have a whole lot planned last week, and Pat hit me in the DMs and said, "You know what you should do? You should do an RV industry episode because we could have some fun with it." And I said, "That is a great idea, Pat. Our next show is Tuesday. You're going to be here and you're going to help me plan it." And Dakota said, "Sure, whatever. I'm planning on canceling on you anyway." So I was like, "Oh, that'll work out," because then about 45 minutes before, Zach will say yes, and he knows camping, so this will be perfect. So Pat just came back, and we're going to talk about this towards the end of the program, but as a little teaser, Pat just came back from a grand road trip odyssey. He went out to South Dakota and Wyoming and points in between. So he's in the navy blue shirt, TV right, if you're watching on the big screen at home, which is the only way to watch this show, or you're listening in your car. Starting July 1st, you're really not allowed to hold your phone, so I hope you're streaming it in the car now and not holding it up to your ear. And then on screen left, we do have Rusty, and he is the industry insider on RVs. The thing about the RV industry is that it's based here in Indiana, Rusty.
It's huge in Indiana.
It's not just dealers like you, which, by the way, thank you for coming behind enemy lines, because I know there's a lot of billboards as you're coming into town here. And I don't know what kind of crap I'm going to get for bringing you into Newcastle, from the locals, but I'm glad you're here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
So what can you tell me about the RV industry in Indiana? You guys you're a retailer.
Correct.
Or a storefront.
Correct.
Brand new building, by the way.
Yes.
Congratulations on that.
Thank
That opened up last fall or over the winter?
That was October, I think.
October.
Yeah.
So Mount Comfort RV is at Mount Comfort Road, just off I-70. And where do the campers come from that you guys sell?
As far as where they're built?
Yeah.
I would say 80-90% Northern Indiana. And that of the industry, we were about 90% right now. I think it's like 88% is the number of RVs are sold in the U.S. are built in Northern Indiana. So I mean that's I got some stats in front of me. It's in Indiana alone, the economic impact is $32.4 billion from the RV industry.
$32 billion in.
That's Indiana alone.
Yeah. So so what's do you know what that is nationally?
I got it right here. 114 billion.
So it's a $114 billion industry, and 32 billion of it happens in the state of Indiana. And
that's correct.
That is probably the purchases that happen in Indiana plus the labor and the
right. That's taken into account all the manufacturers and suppliers. It's taken into account the RV dealers, the service facilities, which are a lot of them are dealers as well. It's taken into account the RV campgrounds and just travel in general related to RVs.
Man, that's everything, right? So it's fuel that goes into them. It's the road taxes that come out of out of pulling.
It's going to be all the revenue generated by the RV industry.
Fantastic. So they're built in Northern Indiana. It's and I know that mine's a Keystone product, which is, I guess they build them on the West Coast in Oregon, and then they build them in Indiana as well.
Yeah, they typically those plants on the West Coast aren't really related to the East Coast. It's kind of wild because like we carry Salem, which is one of the top selling travel trailers in the country, and they have Salems that are built in Northern Indiana. They have Salems that are built out in Oregon. And if you talk to the people at the Salem plant in Northern Indiana, and you say, "Oh, what do they do out in Oregon?" They're like, "I don't even know who those people are." There's like no connection. They're both owned by the same parent company, Forest River.
Right.
They're both called Salem, but there's no like. You would think they would talk to each other, and they don't seem to.
That's interesting.
Is that just to decrease travel costs from here out to
I
the
think
West
so,
Coast?
Especially when you're looking at, in our industry, I guess a lot of people don't realize, I mean, you guys do because you own campers, but they don't realize how affordable RVing is. It's a lot. It's going to save a lot of money over travel. The RV industry has done a number of studies that they look at, flying, which nobody wants to do right now. They look at staying in hotels, which people are leery of now. They look at like eating out at restaurants, and they look at all these different kinds of vacations. And then they take the cost of the whole thing and then compare it to what would the cost be in a tent camper, like a pop-up, or what would the cost be in a travel trailer? What would the cost be in a, Class C motorhome or a diesel pusher motorhome? And they're looking at all these different costs, and what they find is that the RVing is like by far the most affordable way to go.
So what we've seen, and one of the reasons why this was an interesting episode when Pat pitched the idea to me, was we're obviously in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic. And as Rusty said, people are looking at different ways to vacation. A lot of your fly away. Hey, I want to go to Cancun for the summer. That's not happening this year. I can't go get on a cruise ship and take my week-long cruise, but it is possible to get in an RV and go across the country or go camping.
Oh yeah. And it's crazy because like so many people, when they buy an RV, they don't necessarily have a destination in mind, and you don't have to. I mean, I know talking to Pat, I talk to Pat fairly frequently, and it's like always like, I watch his Facebook. He's like, hey, I got off work early today, so I'm going to Illinois.
Yeah.
And it's like, he didn't have that planned. He just hooked up to his am I right? You just hook up your trailer and you go.
Yeah. I mean, that's when we actually, that was before we got a seasonal site, but, which is totally different way of camping now that we've done this for the first year. Because, before, like say, if we're going to take a 3-day weekend, you got to take Friday off. You're spending a good half of the day on Friday loading up, hitching up, getting food ready, all that stuff. By the time you get to your state park, an unhitched setup, it's like
7 or 8 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah, sometimes, depending on where you're going. But, my wife pitched this idea to me last year. It's like, well, why don't we look into a seasonal site where we could just keep the trailer and then just throw a bag in the car with some food in the evening and get out there and not even have to take that Friday off. So we've done that. We've got a spot out in Park County right now. And
out there with the bridges.
We're about, 10, 15 minutes east of Bridgeton, if everybody knows where that's kind of one of that and Mansfield. We're just like 3 or 4 miles south of Mansfield. So those are like the two big communities for the Covered Bridge Festival. But we found a nice little park out in the middle of nowhere. And, we frequently said, why haven't we been doing this for years?
So then there's all kinds of different ways and different, I actually call them consumer profiles of people that buy these, but let's look on the macro scale, and then we'll start talking about the individual customers and what they do. If we're talking about the manufacturers and they're based in Indiana, there was a tremendous fear in the industry of, hey, these guys, 2007, 2008, when the big recession happened, the RV industry was decimated. They were in serious trouble.
Right.
And as this recession, what we think was a recession, started, the RV plants closed down in March, and there was significant fear that we don't know what's going to happen to these jobs and these companies that are based in Indiana and what the future looks like.
Yeah.
And that was 90 days ago.
Right. And the thing about this time is it wasn't a lack of demand. So what we saw at our dealership, and I really think a lot of dealerships around the country saw, is January. A lot of the dealerships have January is a slow season. Unless you get into like Florida or Texas, then it's kind of flip-flopped of here. But what we saw, and I think a lot of dealerships saw, is that January was one of the best Januaries. It was our best January we've ever had. February was our best February we ever had. March would have been our best March we ever had. So, I mean, it was.
So even before coronavirus, things were busy.
Things were picking up. Everything was increasing. I think most of the manufacturers were getting the orders for the RVs because the consumers were buying them. So whereas before, when we were actually truly in a recession, I think people were saying, you know what? I want to kind of keep my money because my stocks are going down. I had this big 401k. And now it's not as big, and they were getting nervous. And we saw a little bit of that with the Corona stuff. But the difference is in 2008, 2009, there was a decline, and you saw the decline, and it kept going down. Whereas I think we had kind of a buildup here, and we were seeing it start to come up in January and in February. And then in March, it was coming up in a really big way. And then it was somewhere around the middle to third week of March there where everything got shut off.
Right.
The campgrounds got closed, which I know there was a lot of backlash with that.
Yeah. The state of Indiana. So we have listeners all over the country. In the state of Indiana, Zach and I actually camped together at Starve Hollow. Probably was it April 1st? I didn't even know when it was.
Yeah, it was we saw the end. We saw the end coming.
We were there at the last weekend, and we went. I'd camped. I had a feeling that this was happening as well. So Sarah and I had purchased a camper very late last fall. I think we got to take it out twice. So I'm like, we're going to go early, especially when the coronavirus happened. Well, the state parks were still open. I'm like, we're going every weekend until they can't, because I was like, I know how much money I'm paying for this damn thing, and I don't know how long it's going to be shut down. So the more nights I get in now, my cost per night is going to drop, right? So we were like, all right. So we got like 4 weekends in. We got to that last weekend at Starve Hollow, and I had gone from, it snowed the day we got back from Brown County in early March.
It was 72 degrees
in April. It was completely packed.
Yeah, it was
and
perfect.
people were not exactly social distancing at that point.
I remember. Yeah, we had been out for 4 days. We actually been down to Charlestown, and that was a social distance. Like, it was perfection there. It was like every fourth spot. It was middle of the week. And then we met you guys at Starve Hollow for the weekend, and the lakefront spots were pretty much full, and there's a lot of people on the water, but then they had a full hookup area that looked like a tailgate party for a college football game. And I was like, oh, this isn't going to work for us too well. And I think they shut it down Monday or Tuesday after that. So,
well, in that Saturday night or Sunday night, we saw the police just rolling through, just kind of taking note. Yeah. Unmarked police cars just kept coming through, looking at us and going, man, this is not typical for campground behavior, seeing this happen. So I was like, there's going to be a problem. And then the governor of Indiana shut down all camping at that point for the year, or for that period of time, until Memorial Day weekend, essentially.
Right. And I think to back to what I was saying, I think that's the difference, is that we saw this increase coming up, and then it was really, I mean, the coronavirus is real, but as far as the economic situation, it was kind of an artificial thing that as we're seeing this increase, it was like, okay, we're going to halt this now. I mean, like to what you said earlier, all the plants shut down.
Yep.
I would say the shortest shutdowns were 4 weeks, and we saw some plants as much as 8 weeks. I do think there was a few plants that had outbreaks in the plants where they had 20 or more people get it, which again, they're shut down for that. And then now with the reopening, we have that pent up demand of 2 months of
sales that didn't happen or got delayed.
Didn't happen, or the people, and they're saying, wait, I want a camper. And the problem is for 2 months, they weren't building campers. And then they're already saying, okay, now we can start back up. Well, to get a little bit political, people.
Oh, sure. Why not? We do politics.
That's what you do, right?
Listen, we do it without even trying. We get political. So you have our permission, Rusty.
I don't know Jeremiah very well, but I'm going to assume he's not a big fan of unemployment.
Nope. I like to work. In fact, I haven't been unemployed since I was 15. I'm not a fan of it at all.
So what we're seeing in the industry right now,
if I need a job, can I call you tomorrow?
There you go. So, how do you feel about washing trailers?
Man, I will do anything for a buck.
But here's what we're seeing in the industry.
Actually,
right
Zach
now.
washed my trailer.
I'm the last one to wash this trailer.
So what we're seeing though is we're seeing that these people, you got the plants are opening back up to a higher demand than they've ever seen before, because we have this market that everybody's wanting to camp now, and we've got 2 months of people sitting at home saying, "Man, I wish I could do something." And all they're doing is thinking about this. And now they're like, if they were on the fence before, now they're like, well, hey, I'm going to get out and do something. So they're ready to buy their RVs. So these manufacturers want to start back up. So they call the employees that were furloughed or laid off. And those guys are saying, hey, I'm getting like $900 a week on unemployment.
I'm not coming in there.
Yeah. Wait till my unemployment's up, and then I'll give you a call. It's exactly what's happening.
Yep.
And, so then the ones that they can't get back to work, they're trying to gradually ramp up production. And the biggest thing is well, all the manufacturers were shut down. All their vendors and suppliers were shut down as well. So there's 2 months worth of toilets and plumbing parts and roof vents and air conditioners, all this stuff that they weren't building. So everybody, has gone to this just in time manufacturing.
Right.
they can't get any parts.
All of a sudden, all of the inputs that go into this thing, I can't build it.
And the camper manufacturers are making the box. Almost everything else is being made somewhere else.
Correct.
Put together.
There's
water
thousands of
heaters
components
and
that go into
stoves
each
and,
RV.
yeah.
It's a lot like the auto manufacturing deal where, 40 years ago, GM made their own transmissions. GM made their own water pumps. They made all of these parts and they controlled everything. General Motors is a tiny company now in comparison to what they were. They don't own their own supply chain like they did. The RV industry is very similar where you have 3 or 4 key manufacturers for every product line.
Correct. Well, and you have Lippert is a huge company in the RV industry, and they're making awnings, chassis, brakes, air conditioners. I mean, they're making everything. And then you have.
Are they based in Indiana as well?
They're based in Indiana as well. Yeah, Patrick Industries is one of the largest corporations in the RV industry. They're publicly traded, and they're making all kinds of plastic products and different components to RVs as well. And again, these guys were all shut down. So when you got 2 or 3 of these giant suppliers that were all shut down and these manufacturers open back up, they got nowhere to get parts from.
They couldn't build if they wanted to because they've lost their key manufacturers.
And by the way, if you guys having campers have problems with your RVs, it's going to be really hard to get parts for them.
I think I've read about people having issues and they literally had to go. I think a guy had a fridge, something went wrong with his fridge and they just went and had to yank one out of another camper that was on the lot and try and throw it in there for them.
And that's kind of where it's at right now because, like I said, there's no supply. They can't supply the people who are building them. They can't supply us either with the aftermarket parts.
So just off the hand, is your service department screaming right now?
Oh yeah,
with customers that want they have something going wrong and they want to get back out camping.
Well, and that's the thing is we had these people that normally would start thinking about camping in early March. And then, then more people start in late March and more people start in April and more people start at the end of April. All those guys were sitting at home. I mean, you guys got to go out, which was kind of cool, but most of these people are sitting at home. So then all of a sudden the campgrounds open up and then it's just like the phones are ringing off the hook. And then not to mention, we spend 6 to 8 hours, every RV that we sell, we spend 6 to 8 hours getting it ready for the customer. There's a lot of things that, just like if you bought a house and you got to go through and do a punch out list and all that stuff and try to correct this stuff. That's what we do as well, on our RVs. And, so that takes a lot of time for our service department. So you sit here and say, hey, we're selling like 50% more RVs than like our all time high.
So you're at the breaking point of
so
what
they got to get that already. Right. Exactly. And, you guys have been in the RV industry enough as consumers to know that, there's not a lot of RV technicians out there. No. And that's one of our struggles that we've been trying to train a lot from within to try to bring more into the industry. We've worked with like local schools and that sort of thing. We worked with Rupert's kids, brought a couple guys through out of that program. So, we're trying to help that way, but basically you got, like you said, you're at a breaking point where it's like you don't have the people that you need to get the job done. So it's, we got guys working overtime and everything to try to make it happen, but then it comes back to supplier shortages, part shortages, manufacturer shortages.
You only have so much bandwidth and throughput, and there's always consumer demand can be at a certain point, but as a company, you can only do so much to meet it. And there's going to be a weakest link somewhere. Yeah. Whether it's the supply chain, whether it's the number of RVs you have in inventory, or if it's the service side and just the staff.
Right. And well, that's our frustration when you see these unemployment numbers. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, first off, if I go to like, and they're not necessarily jobs people want, maybe they are jobs people want, but you go down any road and everybody's hiring. Mm-hmm. And I think it's people are staying at home. I don't know that. But when we go to, Northern Indiana, I mean, these plants, they need people, production workers like crazy, we need people to work on RVs. I think if you go to any RV dealership, I think they're all hiring right now. And I think a lot of businesses are. So there's a lot of opportunity there.
Didn't Ivy Tech have a program to basically train techs in the RV industry?
We've tried. There's a couple RV specific programs in Northern Indiana that they're trying to ramp up. One of them is up at the RV Hall of Fame that they just got a big grant for. But there's not the vocational focus that I think that there could be. It was kind of wild. We went through this back in, I guess it would have been 2010, coming out of that recession, where we saw not nearly to the scale that we're seeing now, but we saw a big growth in the industry in general, not just our dealership, but in the industry in general. And, looking for technicians, it seemed like you could find diesel mechanics everywhere because you had your Lincoln Techs and those places doing their online or doing all the TV commercials. I'll be a diesel mechanic and all this stuff. And turns out there was way too many diesel mechanics and not enough jobs for them. And I'm like, man, I wish somebody had this. Hey, be an RV technician. And here's, and started with these high school kids and
right.
Got into the vocational schools and that sort of thing. I think there's a big opportunity there.
So there's an opportunity starting out washing RVs, right?
Oh yeah,
that's
for sure.
What your dad did, right?
That's what he started, 45 years ago now, but we have technicians that 20 years ago started out washing RVs and now they're making a good living as a technician. And
so that is the entry level, right? So that's the path. If somebody comes to work for you and they want to make a career more than just hey, I'm going to work, I'm going to work retail or I'm going to have a assembly line worker's job. The career path, if they come to work for Mount Comfort, is they're going to come in and work through your service department and then build a career from there.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities because there's so many different parts to an RV dealership. We have a guy that a huge part of his job is making goofy videos. We have people that their main job is detailing RVs. We have RV technicians. We have warranty administrators. We have parts personnel that. There's the salespeople. Everybody always just thinks like, oh, well, there's like the sales guy, and there's so many different aspects of it.
Right.
And the last time I got mine, I didn't even talk to the sales guy the day of. I picked it up. I spoke to 4 different people in the process of picking it up. I spoke to the finance person first, inked the paperwork, and then spoke to somebody who did the walkthrough. Talked to that guy for a while. It was like a 45-minute to an hour talking about putting labor in. I talked his ear off, and then there's
shocking.
Yeah. And then there's a service guy who's giving, okay, this is how you need to deal with the service department. This is how that's going to work. And so you're going through stations just to get the camper out the door, let alone just there's people in the background I never saw. The camper was washed and cleaned, and those are probably different people that I didn't even see handling that part of the stuff. So a lot of moving parts at the dealership for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Title work. Accounting, there's all the different aspects,
all the back end office stuff too that businesses just have that it's implied, right? Somebody has to pay for them. You got an AP person, I assume, that has to pay for all the campers unless you have to do that yourself. All right. So let's talk about, that's the industry side. Let's talk about the people that are coming in and buying. You said that the folks are sitting at home and there's this built up demand and they want to go to the campground and they want to buy a camper. I guess for those that are novices and that are listening, people see on the front line on I-70, they see the big diesel pusher motorhome that's 40 foot long and they think, man, I could never afford an RV, right? That's way outside of my budget and what's possible. But there's also ways to get into it where you could have something for in the 100s or 200s a month.
Yeah. And that's the big thing. I think that the biggest misconception is that people think of that 40-foot bus that's $500,000 and they're like, oh, that's the RV. It's for the rock stars and that sort of thing. And my first thing I told those people, I said, well, no, the rock stars is about $2.5 million.
You can afford that, but I got one you can have, kid.
So it is different, but no, what, to your point, some of these, lower price trailers that are, you can buy a trailer for under $15,000. And I think that people don't realize that would be a new trailer with a warranty. And like you're talking about $150 a month, which
that's exactly where we bought 2 trailers off Rusty, and the one we're in now is 2016. Our payment's $145 a month. So very affordable.
And it's not to say, man, that's cheap. It's not. But when you look at the kind of stuff that people spend money on otherwise, and one of the things we've been hearing a lot the last 4 or 5 years, everyone's like, oh, I'm going to cut the cord. And they got this cable bill that they're paying $200 a month. I think my cable bill's right at $200 a month. And it's like you could cut the cable bill.
Well, now Shannon Tom, the CEO of Henry County RMC, just joined in, and he sells internet. I'm pretty sure he could probably hook you up for way under that number.
My cable bill is absolutely zero. I don't even have an internet. RV, then. I don't even have an internet. Yeah.
So no, but no, we're seeing that though, is that the people can buy these RVs and $150 a month. And what's crazy is that, we're seeing so many younger people. The old joke was, 20 plus years ago was like who's your demographic? It's like, well, 55 to dead. You know, I mean, that was the thing. And at that time, and I'm talking like late 90s, you had the average RVer probably RV'd for anywhere from 10 to 15 years. And that person probably bought 3 or 4 RVs over that course of that. And they might start out with a pop-up or start out with a trailer, and then maybe they get a fifth wheel, and then maybe they get a motorhome or whatever. But now we're seeing so many people in that 30 to 40-year-old age range come in. And it's gotta be half of the people that are coming in the door now.
Yeah.
And when we look at that, those people are going to go out, they're going to enjoy it, they're going to have fun. They're going to say, man, I really like this. You know, hopefully these people are going to live for 40 plus years.
I sure hope so.
And if they are, these people are not going to buy 3 RVs. These people are going to buy 8 RVs, 10 RVs. So from that standpoint, the market's
that's a very valuable customer for you at that point. If you got somebody that potentially has 8 more purchases, right? So what, so the average 35-year-old comes in and says, hey, I want to buy a camper. What are they looking at? Are they looking at one of your Salems that you're talking about, or what's commonly flying off the shelves? Yeah. So,
Salem's been one of the top 3, selling trailers in the industry for the last probably 5 or 6 years. So obviously on our lot, I mean, we'll sell a couple hundred of them or more this year. We would sell more than that if we could get them, but we can't get them quick enough. Typically, probably I would say the $15,000 to $25,000 trailer is the bread and butter. It's a large part of our sales. I had a stat here somewhere that 88% of RVs sold in the country are towables.
Right. Which is a travel trailer.
Which is a travel trailer, fifth wheel, pop up. 12% that is the motorized, which again, most people, when you say RV or whatever you're saying, they're thinking of the big motorhomes.
So if somebody says RV, we'll work on our terminology here because we're throwing it around. RV means recreational vehicle, which is the entire class of anything from a travel trailer to a pop-up, which is looks flat, then they literally pop it up and expand the thing. It could be a fifth wheel, which is what connects into somebody's pickup truck bed.
Correct.
Or it is the thing you actually get in and drive, where it's got the cab over the top, or it's a big bus type situation.
Right.
All RVs. You guys sell them all.
Yeah. Oh, we sell all of them. Yeah.
Okay. So the most common is the thing that somebody pulls, some sort of a towable.
Correct.
All right. So somebody comes in and they says, hey, I want to buy one. What do they have to actually pull one? They roll in with their Newcastle Town and Country, like Pat has. Mopar Town here. They roll in with their Town and Country. What's the next step?
So they're pretty limited. If it's really a Town and Country, they're pretty limited, right?
Yeah.
Minivans are going to be like probably 2,000 pounds.
You say, check out smalltrailerenthusiast.com.
Right. And that's it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I
get a lot of emails from people saying, hey, I want this. I've got, 3 kids. I want something with a full bathroom, and, I've got a Jeep Renegade to tow it with. What can you steer me towards? I'm like, well, I think like Rusty's dad told me, or maybe you told me once, it's like, well, what color do you want it in?
Yeah. Well, and I think that I'm sure Pat said as many times as I have, you can't tow anything.
Yeah.
And even when you look at some of these small trailers, there's some stuff you just can't tow. Most of the trailers I'm talking about mainstream are going to weigh between 4,000 pounds, maybe 3,500 pounds, and up to 8,500 pounds. Just as for example, most minivans are rated at like 2,000 pounds. You're talking about a pop-up pretty much.
Yep.
Maybe a small teardrop, but that's pretty much your limit. You always want to leave some margin for putting your gear in it, because you're going to take stuff with you.
Yep. Grills, coolers, clothes.
Yeah, exactly.
Food.
And if you're looking at a 2,000 pound pop-up trailer, you're probably going to put 300-400 pounds worth of stuff in it. If you're looking at a 38-foot, 8,000 pound trailer, you might put 1,500 pounds worth of stuff in it. But you always want to leave yourself some sort of leeway there. So just because it says, hey, Mike, your whatever vehicle can tow 2,000 pounds, doesn't mean you should buy a 2,000 pound trailer.
And there are salesmen out there that will play on that.
And there are dealerships that absolutely don't care.
But never at Mount Comfort RV.
No, we're pretty. In fact, we go the other way. Yeah. We've had to have that conversation with people. We say, sir, your truck is rated at 8,500 pounds. This trailer is 8,500 pounds. You're not going to do it.
He's going to be like 10.5, probably, or he could be 10,000 or 10.5, depending on how big the trailer is. Some of them, I usually tell people, look at, and this is getting into numbers, but like, you're talking about how much trailer weighs. There's usually your unloaded vehicle weight. There's usually what the trailer is rated for to actually weigh loaded. And I'll be like, that's the number you need to look at, because you'll be shocked how often you're at that number. And some people have to control going over that number, which might be 1,500 pounds of stuff loaded in a trailer. I had a trailer that was 4,500 empty, and I weighed it. It was 6,000 pounds loaded for a trip to the track.
Did you take the bricks out of it though?
It was like 2 generators, some extra water. It was like,
I was gonna say, that's a lot of cases of Diet Coke.
Yeah. Powerade. Yeah. So, I mean, it was a lot of people, you leave more stuff in there than you think. Like when you go from the first trailer, you're like, oh, this isn't too bad. Then when you go from this first trailer to the second trailer, you have to unload the first trailer, all the stuff you accumulate. Then you figure out, like, cause they're kind of like, they're a Swiss Army knife for going somewhere. Like you go somewhere and you're like, I went to camping with some friends. They're all tent camping. I was the only one who brought a camper, and it was like a vehicle meet. I didn't bring the vehicle that matched everybody else's because I brought the camper. So I was driving something else, and they were like making fun of me until I had everything that they needed for the entire weekend camping.
Until you're the only guy that can open a bottle of wine.
Yeah. They're like, oh man, I need a spatula. I've got a spatula. I've got spoons. I got utensils. I had everything because I had a house with me that had everything I needed to serve everybody. And so you end up with a lot of stuff in them.
I had somebody, this was years ago, but they gave a helpful tip for that. So they took like a sticker or a piece of tape or something, and every item, like a folding chair or a table or whatever they put in there, they put a little piece of tape on it. Then when they used it, they took the piece of tape off. So at the end of the camping season, they looked through and said, well, hey, whatever still has a piece of tape on it, get rid of it.
It's coming out.
And that's not a bad idea to, not a bad way to do it.
Somebody mentioned something to, like, for your front storage on a camper, usually a large storage on the front of a camper, and that just ends up, that's your junk drawer.
Yep.
A lot of times there's just tools, stuff for hitching up, and they said put a bunch of stuff in a bin, and then like put 2 bins next to each other. When you use something, put it in the other bin and move it over. And at the end of the year, pull out the first bin, and if there's anything left in there, do you really need it? Because I mean, Jeremiah ran into a situation where he needed to hook up to a hose, but it wasn't threaded. And so my brother because my brother has a camper too, got us like the water bandit thing. And we're like, well, we'll never use this, but here we go. It's in the toolbox now, because there's that, that one time you might need it. So
I think I'm 80% sure I'm going to need it this weekend at Starve Hollow. I'm 80% sure, because I know the campsite I have booked, and there's water on the site, way inside the weeds, but there's only at Starve Hollow State Park, or not Starve Hollow, Clifty Falls, there are 2 bathrooms that have water on them. That's the only place you can get your water. A lot of campgrounds you go to, they're full hookups and they're luxurious. A lot of state parks are less than that, so you've got to use your onboard holding tanks. So you have to take your camper and drive to one of these sites where they can fill up the water. Well, they've got these little spigots, and I don't know why the state of Indiana thinks this is the right thing to do, but they don't put threads on them. They're just a place to fill a bucket.
Yep.
Well, this little product that your brother found is called a water bandit or something.
Yeah.
And that allows you to clamp onto that and put an actual hose on it and pull it over. There's one of those at the campsite I'm at, like within 15 feet of where I'm going to be. But yeah, I didn't have that at Watkins Glen. We looked around and saw, New York State Parks. They do a great job of marking all of the locations they have water. They paint them blue. It's beautiful. Fantastic. So I looked at one, pulled into my campsite, pulled past the campsite, said, oh, there's one right next to me. I'm fine. Got backed in, set up, leveled or whatever, walked over to it. And there's nothing to thread onto. So that was a lesson learned. Always check that. Didn't know until now.
I've been doing this going on 12 years now, and it's like I'm learning something new all the time.
Every time.
Yep.
Every time you learn something. All right. So let's talk about, I can tell as a guy that's camping, and I grew up doing this. My grandparents camped. My parents had campers. My wife and I finally bought our first one at the beginning of last year. So I've been actively responsible for my own campsites for about the last year and a half now. And last year, unless it was a holiday weekend, you could pretty much jump on the state's website and say, hey, I want to camp somewhere, and I could find something for the following weekend. All of a sudden we've gotten to, and I think this is coronavirus related and probably an indicator as to why you guys are so busy right now, Rusty. You get on the state's website and there are maybe 1 or 2% of the sites available to book. Everything's full every weekend now. So the demand of people wanting to go out and camp off the charts.
Oh yeah, there's a huge shortage of campground sites right now. We were seeing it last year too. I had a lot of friends that were out camping, and they're saying they were having difficulty booking last year. But certainly now, there are some big campground groups, I guess, forming that are trying to open new campgrounds and form camping clubs, I guess, where you can buy a membership that maybe would allow you access to 8 campgrounds or 10 campgrounds. They're kind of a regional thing. So I know there's some more of those coming up. But no, there's definitely a shortage in state parks. I know the infrastructure is not really the best either, right?
It depends. It's all, I think I've learned this, and there's a lot of different interpretations as to what camping means to people.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So you could go and you say, hey, I want to be able to go out for the weekend. And as long as I'm out there for 2 or 3 days, as long as I have electricity, I'm fine, right? You can fill your onboard water tanks, and you get electricity from a pole, and you've got tanks on board, and you dump them at the end, and you're good to go. There's other folks that say, I'm not doing anything less than having a full hookup site, which means I've got water, I've got electric, I've got sewer, so I can get rid of anything. Any of my shower water doesn't have to stay in the camper. It goes away. And there's a very limited number of those. So the amenities are what you expect. If you want Wi-Fi or something else, you're looking
if you're
at
a social influencer like Pat, and you gotta
be able
take
to
those
get that video
Instagram
up.
shots and get your good side, right?
Yeah.
Still waiting.
You got to have that Wi-Fi access.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of campgrounds still are behind the 8 ball on that.
Yeah.
And then it's also a matter of there's different styles. So there are folks that are weekenders, and they go to a place and they want to be in the woods, and they want it to feel like they are out in the wilderness. And then there's other places like Pat where you have potted plants at your campsite.
Well, seasonal RV life is a little different than the weekend warrior thing. So we're learning.
You get your Herbie fully pimped out golf cart.
Yep.
You've got it's a whole society, I assume, in that campground.
It's first world problems.
Yeah.
He's got a deck.
You've got a deck?
I bought a deck from somebody at this park who was leaving at the end of last year. And the manager said, yeah, there's a guy selling this. I don't know. We measured. It's like in 4 sections. I think it's about 8 wide by about 17 feet long. And, it's a few years old. It's got a few sections that could probably be replaced, but I'm selling it for $75.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I was talking to the guy next door who just built his deck. I think it was last spring, and he spent like $700-800 on his. He cut it himself and everything. So I'm like, sounds like a pretty good deal. So they hauled it over for us at the beginning of the season, and power washed it, sealed it, looks good as new. So
you're good to go. So there's everything in between, basically. You can have somebody come in, and you can go to a campground that there's all different kinds of ways to look at RVing, I guess, is the point I have. Is there are people that want to go out for a weekend, and then there's people that say, I'm going to take a road trip, and I want to bring my hotel. So I want to be able to go to, and we're going to do this for intern Mason's not bachelor party. That would be letting something slip. He needs a girlfriend first. Intern Mason's turning 21, in the end of July. We're going to go to Nashville, Tennessee for 2 days. Really expensive to get an Airbnb for 5 or 6 people in Nashville, but you can get a campground for $60-70 a night.
Oh yeah.
So you can go down, stay in a campground that has that full hookup that we're talking about. It's not in the woods. It's not out. You're not getting a big giant campground, but you got a place where you can put your camper down. You've got your utilities, and you're good to go.
Yep.
And it's a way to bring your hotel room with you. So there's all kinds of different ways that you can actually look at camping and still be doing it. But that's what I was trying to ask earlier, is the profile of who your customers are. I assume they're all over the map as to what their goals are.
It's all over the map. And we were already seeing over the last 6 months that younger crowd coming in. But now we're seeing people with new purpose in their RVs. So like one of the things that's really picked up in the industry over the last probably year or so is what we call B vans. So essentially what that would be is it would be a van that the whole inside of it is converted into an RV. It uses the actual van exterior. So if you saw it driving by, the only way you would be able to distinguish it from just like a passenger van is you might see the air conditioner on the roof. You might see an awning on the side of it. But then when you go inside of it, it's going to have maybe a bathroom. It'll have a kitchen, a sink, and just all the refrigerator, all the amenities you would have in another RV, just in a small package. But we're seeing so many people looking for those. And I really think it's because of the change in the whole travel climate right now with what's going on, in the world. You get people who are buying these things now that, you say these will probably start this ballpark around $70,000, which is like
the Class B,
the B vans. Yeah. Which is a whole lot of money. Unless you compare it to like a Cadillac Escalade that's like $110,000.
Right.
Right. And you see Cadillac Escalades all over the place. Or like
let's be honest. If you're buying a Class B, it's probably on a Mercedes-Benz chassis anyway, right?
So here's the thing. So, they have Dodge Ram ProMaster, which is going to be this like $70,000 range. They're going to have the, Ford now has the Transit chassis. That's going to be like probably $90,000 to $100,000 depending. And then usually you're going to be over 100 for the Mercedes. If you get really crazy and want to Airstream, you might be close to 200. Yeah. But realistically 100 to 130 on the Mercedes chassis, which again, you're in the same ballpark as a Cadillac Escalade. Except for you can finance these things for like 20 years. So that Cadillac Escalade payment that might be,
$1,300 a month.
Yeah. Or $2,000 a month or whatever. Yeah. Maybe you're $800 or $900 a month. Okay. So it is more affordable from that standpoint. But what I was getting at is, the people that are buying those now are not necessarily the people that say, hey, there are the van life people that are like, man, hey, I just want to travel and just be in my van and just go out and, me and my wife and my dog or whatever and go see the sights. But what we're seeing now with everything that's going on is we're seeing the people who say, hey, you know what? I live in Indiana. I have family in Alabama. I have family in Georgia. I have family on the East Coast. And these people might have flown 3 or 4 times a year to go visit them. And now they're saying, I don't want to mess. I don't want to do the planes. I don't want to do the germs. I don't want to do the security checkpoints. I don't want that. They want the freedom. They're saying, I'm going to buy a van and we're going to drive. And if I need to pull over and sleep, I can do that. If I want to bring lunch with me and not have to go get somebody else's germs, I can bring that with, bring lunch with me.
So our friend Shannon Tom is in the chat and he wants to know if he went out and bought a Class B, what kind of depreciation is he looking at? He does that. He keeps it for a couple of seasons. That $100,000 Class B, what's it going to be worth if he uses it for 2 years and then he decides, all right, I'm done?
So it's the depreciation thing is pretty unique in the RV industry. They always talk about like the boat industry, like you lose like half your money like the first year, right? The RV industry is really, really unique because of a couple of different factors. Number one, the more expensive it is, you're probably going to see faster depreciation. So if you're going to buy a $500,000 motorhome, it's probably going to depreciate a lot faster than if you're going to buy a $15,000 trailer. And the main reason is when these things depreciate, there's always kind of like a bottom level, right? And right now in our industry, if you have a nice trailer, whether it's 10 years old or 20 years old, the biggest factor is what kind of condition is it in? And that trailer might be worth $10,000. Now, if you bought that trailer 10 years ago, you might not have paid much more than $10,000 for it.
Right.
And so when you're looking at stuff like that, there's not a lot of depreciation. The other thing about these B vans in particular is there's not a lot of them out there. And we get so many customers coming into us and say, hey, I want a late model B van. I don't want to take the depreciation on it. Right. So everybody's looking for that 1-year-old, 2-year-old van. They get like, well, man, if these are 70,000 new, maybe I can get it for like 50,000. And it sounds really appealing. But what we talked about earlier is these people that are buying these vans, they're keeping them for like 5, 6, 7 years. So the chances of somebody having one that's like they kept for a year or two and then now they're selling it or trading it in or whatever are really slim.
It's not like a car where you cycle through them every year or two and you're switching. You're finding that they're longer term ownership.
Yeah.
And those seem like you said, they're like they're not a super popular thing. So probably the people that buy them, that's what they want. They've thought about this. This is a planned out thing as opposed to like, it's not usually like a knee jerk reaction. Like those aren't starter campers. You don't buy that as like, oh, this is my intro to motorhome because they are small. The interiors are, we go to RV shows and look through them and you compare it to an Escalade, you walk inside some of them and you're like, wow. Like the interiors are amazing.
They're like a yacht.
And it's incredible how they fit everything in there and how compact everything is. And they have nice, if you want it, nice leather interior, nice like butcher block countertops and things. So yeah, I would think that the people that want them, because those are real popular right now, is the people that want them and they're going to use them and they're going to love them because that's what they're intended use for. I bet not a lot of them want to dump them off and then go get a fifth wheel, which probably to them is more hassle than they've been dealing with because they like to park those B vans. You can park them in a lot more places than you can get like a big fifth wheel or a towable rig into.
Well, I think the thing is too with those, going back to the depreciation thing, is there's so few of them. Like I said, especially if somebody's looking for one or 2 years old, there's so few on the market that drives the price up. So it's almost the price of a new one. The other thing is when you're looking at, most people would finance them. When you're looking at financing, you'll typically get better terms, whether it's longer terms or better rates on a new one that's under warranty than you would on maybe a 3-year-old one that's not under warranty. So when you look at it from that standpoint, you might be better off to buy a new one because the payment wise might be pretty close.
So the other side of the conversation, we're talking about the Class B, where that obviously you don't need to have a tow vehicle in there. Ryan Bacon is in the chat and he wants to know why RV dealers don't sell tow vehicles as well or as often. You're not a new car dealer necessarily, but I suppose you would potentially at times have vehicles as well.
We do usually used, usually pickup trucks. A lot of times we'll get the person, like I said, there can be a natural progression where the person buys a trailer, then they buy a fifth wheel, then they buy a motorhome. And we'll get that person that has the truck and fifth wheel together or the truck and trailer together and say, hey, I want a motorhome, but I have no use for the truck if I'm getting a motorhome because all I use it for is to pull my trailer.
Right.
So we'll have that then. Typically, sometimes we'll package them up like that and sell them. A lot of times we might just sell them to a local car dealer who gets a lot more people looking for that type of vehicle.
So one of the other, I talked to our friend John Phillips, who's the sales manager at Andy Moore Buick GMC in Fishers, and he was telling me about the low availability of pickup trucks right now as well. So I think not only on the RV side, you buy a travel trailer, you're not going to pull it with that town and country, so you need to go buy a truck. And I had some data that I put in the show notes that you guys, if you're a Patreon member, you can jump in there and you get the show notes every week from us. They went from, at the beginning of March, there was about 100, if you look at a GMC Sierra or a Chevy Silverado, there was over 100-day supply in the market of new Chevy trucks or new GMC trucks. When you look at the May data, it's down to like a 60-day supply. So all of a sudden, all of these, same problem that happened with the RV industry happened with the truck industry as well. And the tow vehicles are gone. Right. So it's a really good time to sell a truck if you've got one, Zach, or your big SUV or whatever you have.
I've got a 2017 Toyota Tacoma TRD off-road with the tow package.
Oh yeah, but that can only tow like 3,100 pounds. You're not going
to. Maybe. It's rated for like 6'2", I think.
It's also a vicious circle of people that buy a truck, get a camper, they want a bigger camper, need a bigger truck. Truck's now got more capacity than they have camper, another camper. And you'll see people that literally just leapfrogging like that.
Go back and forth.
Mr.
Small Trailer over here.
Pat's done
that. That happened. Right.
Yeah. Here comes Pat's confession story, and I'm going to step away for a moment, but I'll let you explain how this happened, Pat. How did it get away from you?
Well, we had another grandkid, and we had a little 15-foot Cerro Scotty, and it was good for my wife and grandson number 1. And then, grandson number 2's coming on the way. We're down at Brown County camping, and we're talking. It's like, when this next one comes, I don't think we're going to be able to do it in this thing. So it was like that next week or maybe the next day, I'm not sure. We went out to Mount Comfort and just started looking at some bunkhouse models. And next thing you know, we're selling our Scotty, and we're putting an order in on a 29-foot Shasta. And so I had a 2003 Toyota Sequoia to haul it with. On paper, it had enough because the trailer weighed like 4,400 pounds. I think the Sequoia is rated at like 6,000 something. So we had enough buffer there. First time we took it out to the Dayton KOA, going out here on 70. It was an adventure that I did not want to do ever again because I learned then that just because a tow vehicle has the capacity to haul it wheelbase comes into play.
Yeah.
And I think the Sequoia was like 119-inch wheelbase. And you've got a 29-foot trailer. That is not a good combination because it's basically that whole trip from Indianapolis out to Dayton was dog wagging the tail.
Yeah.
Or tail wagging the dog. I'm sorry. Yeah. And
it depends on how you get your Merdswicks.
Well, that's true. And so we got there, and I'm like, man, I do not want to do this because it was to the point where when I could see a semi coming, I would feel it before I would actually see him.
Grip the wheel.
Yeah.
A little tighter.
And it got to the point on several occasions where, with the wind coming off the truck plus the actual wind happening, it was like I had to let completely off the gas and just kind of edge my way over to the emergency lane so that way he could get by quicker. And I knew then it's like, all right, we got to do something.
Well, it's manageable. They've got like hitches and things to arrange up. Yeah, if you're not familiar with
that
it,
didn't even help.
If you're not familiar with it, when a semi is passing you, which happens frequently, the first thing you feel
is doing the appropriate speed.
If you're doing the appropriate speeds, you shouldn't be passing too many semis. They'll be passing you. The first thing you feel is the back end of your trailer try to go away from you to the right. And then as the semi gets up next, that push moves its way up the entire rig. But as it pulls next to the trailer and you have two trailers next to each other, then you get a low pressure. And so now the trailer comes the other way as your truck normally is being pushed in a way. And you're like, this is too much for me to manage mentally right now.
Right.
And you're doing this all at 60 to 65 miles an hour. Hopefully, like say if you're maintaining pretty good speed. So
it was, we then had a decision to make and we ended up.
And you really liked the camper at that point.
Yeah.
It was the new thing.
Right. So we ended up getting a 3/4 ton Sierra that we got up at Penske Chevy. And,
if you buy a new Penske Chevy now, I hear it comes with two tickets in turn 4.
I don't need those. So
Pat lives in turn 4.
I know.
Almost, yeah.
Pat in turn 4.
So we ended up getting the Sierra. We had it for most of that summer. We took it on a big road trip out to Texas. Went cruising out Route 66 with it. And it was a great truck. I mean, the first time I hitched that thing up after we bought it, put on my weight distribution hitch, everything. I took it around 465. I'm like, man, I don't even know this thing's behind me. It was great. Loved it. But, that payment got to be, so we're like, all right, time for a new decision. Rethink the game plan. And then, ended up getting a 2005 Yukon XL. So,
which is the Suburban, basically GMC's version of a Suburban, the long
it's a longer
SUV
version, as opposed to like your Tahoe.
Right.
And, so I hooked it up to that. It still kind of gave me that wiggle that I wasn't really comfortable with. So I'm like, all right, what are we going to do now? Well, Mountain Comfort had this essentially the same Shasta Oasis, but in a 22-foot model. That was a bunkhouse. And I'm thinking, all right, we're going to eat a lot on this because I think we had that trailer not even a year. And, so we went back out and made the deal and, they gave us a really good deal. We didn't have to really.
Does this happen a lot, Rusty, where somebody comes in and they've got something's changed and they need you to make an adjustment?
Yeah. It's usually the other direction though. It's usually the person buys something too small.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I've heard a number of our salespeople say it, where somebody's on the fence and they're like, well, do I want something smaller? Do I want something bigger? They're like, Pat's case is a little different, but they're like, it's never too small. It's never too big. I'm sorry.
Right.
So yeah, it's most of the time it's the other way around.
There is a sweet spot though, right? Like you get to a certain point in the length of these things and all of a sudden it becomes, man, I can't find anywhere to go with a 38-foot camper, or I can't get to the campsites I want to go to.
Right. And there's a lot of misconceptions on that too, because you always hear Pat was just out west, so he can probably give some insight into it. But you always hear the people say, "Oh, it's not legal to take something over 30 feet into the national parks." And it's like, guys, the national parks are like entire states,
right?
There's no like you can't take a 35-footer into a national park, but we talked about like older campgrounds and infrastructure and things like that.
They're not designed for larger.
There are a lot of campgrounds that happen to be inside of national parks that were designed 40, 50, 60 years ago. And back then, if it was 30 feet long, it was massive. I mean, that was like the biggest thing on the road.
There's a campground in Kentucky that I don't think can handle anything bigger than like 25 feet, which is most campers now. Like
just about everything.
Because the real wheelhouse is like 27 to about 32 feet. And then you'll see a lot of 35 footers, but that's smaller to get under that. And I was like, that's a whole park and they can't handle anything bigger than that. And I was like, I just bought a camper that's too big for that park. I was looking for a spot to go.
So true. Cause I know I've worked a few shows for like Rusty and then another dealer in Indianapolis. And, I'll be hanging around stuff that's 25 feet long and people will walk in, put their head and not even get in it. Just put their head and look around. Too small.
Well, and you guys will probably appreciate this. There was new, news came out this week from the, Recreational Vehicle Industry Association.
You're going to have a standard measurement, aren't you?
Exactly. And that's been the big issue is you go as a consumer, you go to an RV show and you're looking around at all these trailers and you look at this one trailer and it's a 24 something or other. You go to this other trailer, it's a 26 something or other. And then you go see another trailer, it's a 23 something or other.
That's supposed to mean, in theory, that's the length of the model, right?
You would think that would make sense, right? But then you like look at the brochure and all three of these trailers are 29 feet long. Yeah. Every single one of them. So to what Jeremiah was saying is RVIA, who is kind of there's not really any, government interference or anything there, but
it's like a trade group for the industry.
Yeah. And it's kind of the closest thing to a governing body. They kind of certify, I would say probably 90 off the top of my head, probably 90% or more of the RVs that are built in the industry. They have certain specifications that they agree on of, the plumbing has to hold up certain water pressure and things like that. But the one thing that they just came out with it earlier, this was the end of last week, was that they're going to require now, sometime within the next year, they're going to require to put the actual length on the outside of the camper. Now they might still have weird model numbers, but somewhere on that camper, you should be able to find a sticker that'll, say it's this long.
Or 27-foot camper is 31 feet long.
Yeah.
And I think
or
that
277.
Number, what I've seen generally is that number that's shown on there, like on my case, 18BH.
God, you little guy.
Right?
Small trailer enthusiast.
I've always kind of referred to that number as being kind of the box length.
Which is usually close.
Yeah. And then, cause if you see that number and then you add, say, 3 to 4 feet, that's going to give you roughly what your hitch to tail total length is. So.
The lovely Sarah Morrell just walked in, and when we were looking at ours last year, I was trying to convince her that if we got what's called a Murphy bed, which is a bed that folds down and turns your living room into your living room into the bedroom, I could have been in that class, and I could have saved 6 or 8 feet of camper.
And I tell you,
but we couldn't come to that arrangement.
I was never really a big fan of the Murphy bed, but the more I see them, because they're almost in anything you want now.
Yeah, we saw the Murphy beds. We saw those come out probably 3 or 4 years ago, and we looked at it. We're like, man, this is the greatest idea, because you can take like a 25, 26 foot trailer and put it in like an 18-foot box. Yeah. And
so
we're like,
here's my problem with the Murphy bed.
Hey, my wife's here.
Defending yourself.
So I believe that whenever it's time for us to go to bed, when we're camping, it's time to go to bed. I do not want to have to hold my bed down, make the bed, fold it back up in the morning, because I just want to get up and kind of get my day started. So that was my thought there. And then also, if we ever welcome, a little Morrell or two into the world, well, there's not going to be any fun time while we're camping.
Ever. So that's why we have a 27-foot camper.
With a bunkhouse.
I don't know. I think people in pop-ups do okay.
So, but so what we found though is 3 or 4 years ago, when we thought this was a really cool idea, people were just like that. They couldn't get on board. They didn't see. They're like, yeah, I don't get it. Right.
I'm kind of surprised the number of people that are really particular about having, and this is something you kind of give up with a camper most of the time, a little bit of privacy, in that people want, I know people that specifically say, my children have to be in a different room. Like they have to be able to close the door on their kids. Yeah. Or they want to be able to close the door on their bedroom.
So it's got to be over 30 feet long.
And then at that point, you're 30 feet, and you're probably more like 32 to 35 if you really want both of those together. Murphy beds were like, that's an interesting idea, but I didn't even try with my wife on that one.
Well, so 2-3 years ago, I said 4 years ago or so, we saw these and we thought they were a cool idea and nobody was into it. So 2-3 years ago, we pretty much had given up, our dealership anyway. And, Salem was one of the manufacturers that came out and introduced like a lot lower price one. They have like an FSX line and a, what's called their Cruise Light, which are a little bit lower price than their standard Salems. And, they just took off, to the point where when we had the January RV show and then the February Boat Sport and Travel show. And like, it was like person after person is walking into our display saying, I want to see your trailers that have the Murphy beds. I mean, asking for them by name. Whereas 3 or 4 years ago, we're saying, hey, let me show you the trailer with the Murphy bed. They're like, what are you talking about? What's a Murphy bed? I don't know. What does that mean?
They've also gotten better. So that, as I can see it, the design has gotten better.
The mechanisms are
so
better
that
now.
they're quicker. They fold down instantaneously. It's not you're unfolding a 3-part mattress. It doesn't feel like you're sleeping on a pullout. It's a real mattress that comes out of the wall at that point.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is too, is, let's face it, most RV mattresses are not very comfortable. They're either going to be like really springy that's just going to hurt your back, or they're going to be like a hard foam. What I always recommend to people is you can typically get like a memory foam mattress topper,
which is what we've done. We've got a 2-inch.
They're usually less than $100. Yep. And when you throw that on top of that hard foam, it gives you a pretty good feel.
And you'll find too in the wintertime, it's a lot more firm as well.
We took our, it's all of a sudden it's from a liquid to a solid, right? We took ours. We basically took the mattress out. I extended it. It was a queen. Zach and I have very similar campers, but it's like GMC and Chevrolet. The manufacturer that makes ours. Mine's a Bullet and his is a Passport, both made by Keystone. But his camper is designed with a full queen bed, I believe.
Yeah.
And mine's got a short
You've
queen.
got the RV queen?
I've got the short queen.
Yeah.
I did. I took the piece of plywood out, extended it, gave up the little extra walk around space we have in the bedroom.
There's like a 6-inch, I think it's RV queen's 60 by 74 typically. And then a full queen is like 60 by 80.
Yeah. I'm blessed with height and girth, but blessed with height. I went ahead and we ordered one on Amazon and spent a couple $100 and got an inner spring mattress and, massive improvement. I think Sarah's shaking her head. Yes, it's a whole lot more comfortable.
You need extra length because you've ever slept in most front bedroom campers. The bed usually the wall slopes above you.
Yeah.
So you can get that full 80 inches if your head's like touching the wall above your head. So yeah, every little bit of bed space you can get helps.
Yeah. That is the one complaint I have with ours is that after we did, and this is a good transition into these longer road trips and things that you can do with these and the opportunities it has for a vacation. Sarah and I spent 10 nights in a row in ours and I was like, man, the reason we got ours is because we have a lighter tow vehicle and, 7,500 pounds, 7,000 pounds total all in weight is what we need to be towing. So an ultralight camper is what worked for us. But one of those bedrooms that had a slide out and maybe some extra drawer space and some extra getting ready space in the bedroom would be real nice.
Yeah. And that's actually one of the cool things. I keep mentioning Salem because it's our number one seller, but
yep.
About 3 years ago, they did something that is the simplest idea. And it changed like the world of RV floor plans. They changed the front profile of their camper. And if you know, and it's weird because a lot of them, we always joke in the RV industry that it's R&D is research and duplicate. that basically you go online and you look at what all the other manufacturers are doing, whatever they're doing well, you just copy it. You can't like patent a floor plan and stuff like that. So if you see one manufacturer has a floor plan that people really like, then everybody's
going to have it in a year or two.
But so one of the things that Salem did is they made the front, you talked about it was sloped in the front. Yeah. They took that slope and they moved it further forward so that it goes kind of out above where the batteries, there's typically like an A-frame on the front and the battery sits on there and you got your propane tanks in front of that. But normally the front of a camper is pretty abrupt or it has some sort of like weird slope that doesn't make any sense.
It's like an egg shape of some sort.
Well, and some of them even like slope at the top, which is weird versus slope at the like curve at the bottom, if that makes any sense. But what Salem was able to do is move that forward and in the same length of trailer from actually when I'm talking measuring from the hitch in the front to the bumper in the back, they gained like 6 inches. So every bedroom where they had a wall and that mattress is touching the wall.
Yep.
Now they have 6 inches there. everyone where they had like 6 inches there where you could kind of stand and get dressed. Now they have a foot so you can actually stand and get dressed. So that was kind of a cool little innovation that, like I said, I'm surprised a lot of people haven't picked up on, but where they were able to not really increase the price of the camper or not lengthen it or do anything like that, but just change that profile to kind of fit what like you guys were talking about.
So before we get into the road trips and the stuff you can do with these, somebody asked about leasing, and I want to mention rentals as well. Or I know in the auto world you can lease a vehicle. Is leasing a camper something that happens very much?
Not really. And we've kind of talked about would it make sense to set up a program like that? And we haven't really had a good enough business plan, I guess, to make that feasible. We do rent campers. It's typically a little bit it's cheaper to own one, I guess, than rent one. And I think we had a customer a few years ago that kind of looked at where's the break even point.
How many nights a year I have to have?
How many nights a year do I have to use it to make it make more sense to buy versus to rent? Because we do have that perpetual renter that rents 2-3 times every single year and has for 10 years.
Somebody like Zach that says, "Hey, I'm going to go to the Indy 500 and I'm going to go to the Mid Ohio IndyCar race, so I need a camper 2 to 3 weeks."
We had neighbors that they're at the 500. They go to every race at IMS and they rented a motorhome for every race at IMS, and they would drive up and they would park and they throw their chair with their parking tag and they disappear for a couple hours, and then it would come back. Esther, and I can't remember her husband's name, and they would go get their motorhome and come back, and I was like, you guys need to buy a camper. It'd be cheaper to, even for the couple times a year that, it's expensive to rent them. But if you don't want to own it and you don't have to worry about the maintenance on them. But
so what's the number? What they decide is how many weekends do you need to use it to be worth it?
I don't know I wish I did, but so the trailer rentals are going to go probably, if you got the truck and the capabilities, the trailer rentals are going to go for like probably $70 to $100 a night. Class C motorhome, which is going to be the van front with the cab over sleeping, and some of these are pretty fancy, multiple slide outs and bunk beds and all this stuff. Those are typically going to be around $200 a night. And then your Class A motorhomes, which are the bus style, multiple slide outs and all that, they're going to be around $300 a night. So it'd be like a hotel pricing, except for you can save the money by taking your food with you and kind of be in your own space rather than.
And the vacation starts when you leave the driveway, right? So if
you could start in your driveway. Yeah. A lot of these people camp out in their driveway the night before. They'll load everything the night before and say, "Hey, let's just, we're not leaving till the morning, but let's hang out here anyway."
I know initially during the Corona shutdown, there were a whole bunch of people, they had property where they could, I can't open my camper up where it sits at my house, but there were people that were driveway camping and having a great time just because it was a change of scenery just to go out and hang out in their camper, or that was their home office for some people. So you don't have to go anywhere. You just enjoy them in your driveway.
We had a financial advisor call us and say, "Hey, you guys rent RVs, right?" And we said, "Well, yeah, we rent RVs." And he said, "Hey, I've been at home for like a month working from home." He goes, "Everything I do is online and on the phone." He goes, "Can I rent an RV next week?" And we're like, "Well, yeah, we got one available." And he goes, "Well, let me check with some people." He goes, I'll call you back tomorrow." And he calls me back the next day and says, "Hey, can we rent 3 RVs next week?" And I said, "What's going on?" And he goes, "Well, I got 2 friends that are working at home too. And we figure all our families are sitting at home cooped up and can't do anything. We could go to like a beach somewhere and just sit in an RV on the beach, and we could do our work from the beach, and our families can have fun." And so I think that's something that we're going to see as a cultural shift too. The people that are working from home are going to say, "Man, I can work from an RV also. And I don't have to be, sitting in my living room all the time."
Really tired of looking at these same 4 walls. I can look at
or
4 different walls.
Your living room could be mountains. Your living room can be a beach. Your living room can be a forest, a lake, whatever.
That's exactly, where I work. Cause I've been working from home since like March 17th. And, that's something that they have said basically, because there's been like a couple of people that have moved out of state that were working downtown, because we've proved that, we can do this from home and not, through Skype and
you're not missing a beat. It's all okay.
No, yeah. And like I told my boss, it's like, my production's increased because there's not the, so-and-so stopping by your desk or getting into the conversation about, "Hey, what movie did you see this weekend?" Stuff like that. That's non-existent. And, the last 3 months, my metrics have, proven that, I'm actually a more productive person at home. So, I've threw it by him and say, hey, because my wife and I have talked about this, and her employer is kind of non-committal at this point, but if we decide this is something we want to do, by all means, at least on my employer's side, they've given me the green light to go ahead and do it. So
let's talk about the kind of trips that you guys are taking. Pat, you just came off of a massive road trip. We talked about it earlier.
Non-RV road trip.
Non-RV road trip, but the same. You could do it with an RV.
Oh yeah.
You guys went out to South Dakota, and Wyoming.
Yep.
So what'd you see from the RV side? I know you take these trips. You've documented it, and you've done Route 66 and a number of others. What'd you see?
I tell you, it seemed like about because we spent the bulk of the time out on I-90 by the time you hit it there in, Sioux Falls, I think.
Sioux Falls or Sioux City? I can never remember which
Sioux
one.
City's in Iowa. Yeah. Sioux Falls is north. Yeah.
That's where Winnebago's built.
Yep. That's right. Iowa.
Man,
where was that? What's the name of that? I can't remember.
Forest City.
Forest City.
That's right by there.
And, so we spent however long that drive across I-90 is across South Dakota, 300 or 400 miles or whatever it is. It seemed like
the important thing is every 3 miles there's a sign for wall drug.
There is, yes, and I made 2 stops there going and coming back home. So yeah,
you had to get your nickel coffee and your free ice water.
I got my free ice water. Did not get any coffee, but I got free bumper stickers. So yes, but yeah, it seemed like about every 8 to 10 vehicles going either way on I-90 was an RV. Didn't notice it as much once we got back into Illinois on I-74, back into Indiana, but definitely out in South Dakota, it was very, very heavily populated with RVs on I-90. And, by the time we got out we stayed in, Custer, which is about 40 miles or so south of Rapid City. And, even there, I mean, it's just US 16 is just dotted with little campgrounds all over the place. And a lot of them were kind of high end Class A motorhomes. I'm guessing retirees most likely. But
wealthy tech billionaires, I'm sure.
There, yes. Well, side note, speaking of wealthy tech billionaires, we stayed at a little motel called the Rocket Motel in Custer. And so when we were there, I was reading up on the place. I got on
Custer,
Google.
named after General Custer.
Yes. And so
Adam
I'm reading up on the place.
Uncle.
Who?
Adam Vinatieri's uncle, the Colts legend.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Wasn't it Custer's yeah, it was.
I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, Colts expert over here. Yes. If you've watched any Colts game, you've heard this Adam Vinatieri story. Anyway, moving on.
Anyway, so
actually his uncle was in the in Custer's group, but it wasn't Custer himself. Anyway,
nice.
Moving on.
Okay.
Total sidebar. I wish Chase was here.
So, I was reading up on this motel we were staying at and, found out that, and now his name just escaped me, Tesla guy.
Musk.
Yeah. Elon Musk stayed at the Rocket Motel 6 years ago because he was on a big cross country tour, with some other Tesla people and he was running low on juice and he knew somebody who knew somebody that lived in Custer. So they got him to the Rocket Motel, took his Tesla down to a campground to charge it up. And so he ended up spending the night there at the Rocket Motel. He was so impressed with his time in Custer that he spent, I can't remember how many millions of dollars putting 20 some Tesla charging stations all throughout town and one at the Rocket Motel.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So
was
Custer's
pretty cool.
now a supercharger hub.
It is. They say it's the largest per capita city in the U.S. So
Custer's a cool spot. It's not overly touristy. It's not like Deadwood and some of the other spots out there.
And that's what surprised us because we got in town on the 14th, which was a Sunday. And
I think it's an old gold mining city, if I remember right.
Yeah. And, there was nothing open. Everything was either closed at 7:30, 9 o'clock was the latest. Cause it was
welcome to vacationing during the pandemic, Pat.
Right. And, so it's well, shoot. Cause I had planned on cause that was my birthday. I'm okay, I'm going to get into town, have a steak dinner. Time we got there, everything's closed. So I ended up walking down the gas station, got couple little hot dogs out of the thing.
If you brought your camper, you could have made your own steak.
No, right? Well, we would not have been there on my birthday. We would have been another day or so.
A day or two later.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But yeah, it was A lot of RV campgrounds out there. Beautiful. I mean, some just basically spots in a field, others more elaborate, higher end stuff that we talked earlier about the KOA on the way to Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. Palmer Gulch.
Yeah. And that place was gorgeous. I mean, we're like, wow. I didn't look at the rates, but you just know it's one of those things where it's probably pushing $70-$80 a night.
Oh yeah. There's, especially looking in the East Coast. We just came off of the New York trip. We had state parks booked, and with the pandemic, New York hadn't opened their state parks yet. So I was almost running 2 vacations at that point where I had backup reservation planned a number of places. And yeah, some of the KOAs in the East Coast are well over $100 a night. It's unreal. It is. But yeah, that place at Palmer Gulch, they have, it's a full resort where they have campground sites. They have, you don't have to have a camper to go there. You can stay in a cabin. You can stay, there's all kinds of stuff, but beautiful.
Another thing I did notice when we were out there, probably more than any other trip we've taken, is I saw a lot of Cruise America Class C motorhomes out of the rentals. Yeah, the rentals, which is like a big nationwide network of RV rentals that you can. And I think they mainly do Class C's, if I'm not mistaken. But saw a lot of those. I saw a very good close up of a back end of one as it was trying to meander its way through Custer Park right in front of us. So that was a little.
As an RV owner, those are kind of fun to roll in because you're like, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
Because they usually
they don't
quite know what they're doing.
Exactly.
You just kind of sit back and that's when you hope that you're sat down and you're like getting your chair and you get your drink. You're like, just going to be entertained for a few minutes by this. And I'll offer to help if I feel like I can help, because usually you try to be helpful if you're in a campground. But yeah, they're usually kind of entertaining to see.
At least those folks are in it's a vehicle, so it's still a somewhat natural. When they're backing up a trailer, it's even. A
perfect example of that, if you guys have never seen the movie RV with Robin Williams, spot on right there is what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, the dump station scene when he's trying to empty the sewer hose.
Yeah, classic.
I think that movie's probably cost you more customers than gotten you customers, though, Rusty. Because I think people are traumatized.
It's a funny movie, though.
It's never gone that horribly wrong for me.
Yeah,
and I'm an idiot, and I've never had that happen.
I've had a couple close calls. I've had some where I caught it, the valves were open, but the dust cap was still on, and I caught it. Yeah. And so there's this much of the worst stuff you've ever encountered. And you're like, make sure that your feet are back far enough. Yeah. Trying to get the cap off. Like, this is not going to be good.
Yeah. I've had an incident or two as well where it's like my coupler wasn't on quite as tight as it needed to be. And when So
when you're sitting in the RV parts store and there's a $15 sewer hose and there's a $50 sewer hose, it's money well spent.
Yes.
You don't want to put your finger through that hose.
Buy the premium hose.
Yes. Buy the premium hose.
It's not a matter of if you'll have an accident, it's a matter of when you'll have an accident at the dump station. So
yeah, you don't want the hose you can stick your finger through.
It's a rite of passage.
What's the official? You should replace your sewer hose every so many years.
I've never heard.
You guys have a rule? I'd be like every 3 months. You need
the worst is though when that customer comes in and they have that sewer hose or other sewer parts, and they just bring them into your store and they just flop them on the counter and say, "Hey, I need these."
He knew one of these.
And it's like, you may be comfortable with that, but I'm definitely not comfortable with that.
I had a part break on a toilet on a trip, and we had to pick it up at a dealership that was on the way. And I had the old one. And it was on the freshwater side of the toilet. I was not going to roll around with it wasn't like the valve at the bottom, but nobody in that dealership wanted to be within 3 feet of me holding this part that I told them was to a toilet. It was kind of funny. I'm like, I'm not going to throw it. Yeah, but they're backing away, but yeah, I can see people.
I ran an RV parts store for like 3 years, and it was amazing how many people would come in with like a broken black water tank valve and just flop it on the counter with stuff crusted on it. And you're just like, no.
Gee, thanks, dude.
I hope he's not paying cash.
So, real quick, I want to get into this with Pat. Pat, I sent you on I want you to explain this because I don't know if anybody's actually going to understand it from a distance. I sent you on the world's strangest scavenger hunt.
Yes. I was hoping we'd get to this.
Yes. So my mother is from South Dakota and her family is from out there. And I mentioned it when I saw that you were going out to the Black Hills. I'm like, hey, just a kind of passing thing. And I said, hey, my grandparents are buried out there.
Yep.
And the next thing I know, you text me and you're like, hey, I'm in scenic South Dakota.
Yep. Sent you pictures of Main Street, the old jail that's there.
Yeah.
And, it was neat. It is
a ghost town.
Yeah. Yeah. There's, a couple of people I think that still might live there. But what was odd about that, and I don't think I shared this with you, we get there and we see the old jail, the old saloon that's all boarded up and everything. So we pull over there, going to get out and take a few pictures. And there's this classy motorhome sitting, I don't know, 20, 30 feet away from us. And it was running. I just thought it was somebody who pulled over, was going to do the same thing. No, this lady gets out of it and she starts walking towards us with this photo album. What's this? And, we're kind of, in the whole pandemic thing, and my wife is, and we're both kind of skittish about people getting too close to us at this point.
Right.
And so this lady just kind of gets right in our space. And, she says, yeah, I used to live here 30 or 40 some years ago. And she opens up this photo album that shows pictures of inside that saloon bar. And she's like, yeah, this is the guy that used to own it. And that's me. These are little pictures from 1985.
She's been sitting there for 3 weeks, waiting for you to get there.
To show up. But yeah, she had an interesting story. She was 69 years old, had just retired, I don't know, in December or something, bought this probably 20-year-old classy motorhome and sold everything and hit the road with her dog.
Wow.
And so basically she calls the road home now, but it was an interesting encounter for sure.
The first time I rolled into that town was in 1996 in 1983 Suncrest Class A motorhome on a Chevy. That was a West Coast build, but my parents had it was a seafoam green interior. Beautiful, nice. Beautiful vehicle. So yeah, that was the first time I was ever in Scenic was in one of those.
Yep. And so we just kind of cruised around town. Weren't really sure where the cemetery was. So we headed, because I know you had mentioned that it was a mile north of town or so. So we headed north out of town. My wife's looking at the maps. Well, I think there's a cemetery up ahead. So we pull in there and, it's just imagine watching Dances with Wolves where it's just nothing but vast prairie land. And then you see this little section that has some trees around it with some fencing.
Yeah.
That's it. And it was maybe a quarter mile off the road that you turn off of.
I sent it over and I said, first of all, he's never going to go there. And second of all, he will never find it, even if he does. I think I gave you a link to something. I'm like, this is a total wild goose chase. Best of luck, Pat.
Yep.
This will be a good story.
So the family stays in the van because obviously I'm thinking it's first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to look to see what's on the ground outside when I open the door here.
You're in rattlesnake country.
Oh, big time. Because I tell you, that whole area had a feel of I was out in Arizona.
You are in the wilderness. It is not tame like Indiana. There's shit out there that will kill you. Spiders, snakes, scorpions. It's all out there.
Yep. Yeah. And, so I walk up to the gate. The gate has this chain around it. So I'm like, oh shoot, I'm not going to be able to get in. So I kind of look at it. Oh, okay. It's just kind of wrapped around itself. So I undid it, opened the gate, and it was kind of a precarious situation. Just thinking of the rattlesnakes as I'm walking and looking, and what is there? Probably 200 or 300 graves in there, I'm guessing.
Yeah. It's not very big.
No, but it's big enough to where you still need to look on the ground to see what you might step on. And so that was a bit of a challenge in the 10 minutes or so I was in there. And, so I start walking and boom, there it is. So I saw your grandpa's boot that was on his, tombstone, which was very cool. And you said that's actually
his boot. They had it bronze.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
That was cool. And, so paid my respects, took a picture for Jeremiah, said, everything looks good here.
Yep.
And back into Rapid City we went. That was my Scenic South Dakota story. That was probably one of the most memorable things on that trip.
It was crazy. And at that time, of the surviving children, most of them were together actually having a family reunion in Arizona right then. So it was crazy. And you were there.
You sent the picture to your mom, I think at about the same time. And what was one of the first things she said to you about me? Something about, I hope you.
Oh yeah, watch for snakes. Yeah. That was her immediate thing. That was the other thing is we had one of the aunts, one of their children passed away last year, and I was like, I know the grass was cut then, but it is not like here in Newcastle, Zach, where South Mountain Cemetery looks great all the time. This is this is maybe 1 or 2 burials a year kind of a thing.
Call somebody ahead, let them know you're coming.
Yeah, let them know so that they can get it cut for the twice a year it's going to get mowed. I was I did not have high hopes for Pat's experience. So
it was successful. Yes. I was like, yes.
It was wild times. So that's awesome. So yeah, you can go anywhere. Zach, you've taken some big road trips too with the camper.
Yeah, we did like a little loop of Michigan. We didn't go up to the upper peninsula, but we kind of base camped for a couple of days around Houghton Lake. Actually, a relative of my wife, they have a little cottage. And so we just camped in the driveway for a couple of days. And then we went and did Silver Lake and then Holland and came back down. And then a couple of years ago, we took our last camper and down to South Carolina and camped we were at a campground on the beach in Edisto Island, which is one of the best pictures I have of any of my campers, sitting there with palm trees and the sun coming through, and it's completely surrounded by sand. And my kids, the whole campsite there was no grass to be grown anywhere there. It was just a big sandbox. And I was like, oh, this is what this is about. It was like and we were, a 15-second walk from the beach. So we've done Gatlinburg a couple of times, and then we do our track camping. But yeah, the trip to South Carolina was fun, and we're kind of looking forward to the next longer trip where we take like a week and a half and go travel around, and a couple days here, a couple days there. And it's nice to have everything. You just kind of, once you get set up, you're like, okay, now I've got this settled up and go find somewhere to go, use it as a base camp or do whatever. So
the nicest thing for me is when we're done the end of the night and I'm taking my contacts out and I know exactly where my glasses are, right? Like all of that stuff is just sitting there where I want it.
I'm still working on that. We got a new camper last year and my wife's in charge of the inside. I'm sitting at the outside. I still don't know where half the stuff is. I'm constantly bugging my wife like, where is this? I'm like, I knew where it was on the last camper, but our last one we kept for like 12 years. So I figured out where everything was on that one. This one, I'm still figuring it out.
I say you guys should, at least for the 500 this year, we might have some open spot in my front yard. So
it's possible. I've got, so we'll talk about the Indy 500 for a second. Everybody's got their own plan and what they like to do. And I've always I have an infield parking pass and we set up a big tailgate in the infield. However, with this year, that's very possible that we could stay at Camp Bremer in the front yard and still get to the infield and get in and park okay.
Yeah.
Or say the hell with the infield pass.
We're not going to have our trailer there because that's going to be out in Park County.
Yours is out. I don't have one of those 18-foot models, though. I got a 29-footer or 31-footer.
Well, you might be replacing about a 27-foot Airstream that's usually there. So
we might be okay. And then Zach always camps there, but he's in lot 6 or somewhere in that range.
Yeah, I'm in lot 6. So I'm in your neighborhood. I'm right off of Auburn.
Oh yeah, in that little wooded area.
Yeah,
back there. I know where you mean. Yep.
Yeah, and so we got some trees, and it's around the 500. The creatures of habit are incredible because like our lot, there'll be a line a quarter mile out to 25th Street and then a half mile out 25th. And you're like, we're never going to get our spot. And then you realize everybody in front of you is going to the same spot they've been going to for 20 years.
Always get your spot.
And you're like, oh, look, there's the tree over there. There's a little scamp down in the corner. He's always camped there. And we always end up pretty much where we need to be. So I'm hoping let's hope for cool weather this year, but yeah.
And then do a live remote podcast.
It's very possible.
See,
we will talk off air. It's very possible.
The Cavoyans did that.
Yeah, I was going to say Pat was going that direction.
Yeah. They did they use Bob and Becky Cavoyan usually do a podcast from Checkerboard Square, as they call it. They camp in lots 3. They're on 16th Street on the pavement. And I went over there, I think it was last year, and they were doing a podcast and said, yeah, if you want to bring some friends. So me and a couple that I know that I actually sold a trailer to working one of the shows, they were in lot C, like right down the way from them. And so we got there and, Bob and Becky said, well, our first guest, we'd like to call it Pat. I'm like, because
was that your first podcast?
That was.
Wow.
So this is my second.
You're an expert now.
Yeah. Except it wasn't on TV or anything, but
no pressure being with the Hall of Fame broadcaster.
Right. I mean, a guy who's, interviewed.
Well, you have taken a step down.
But no, I got to know them by kind of sneaking them into the RVIA show that was down in Louisville for a couple of years. So that way they could look at Airstreams before the Airstreams actually came out. So that's how I got to know them. Thank you, Twitter, because Twitter opened so many crazy doors. It's just unbelievable. It's like I was listening to Bob Cavoyan when I was like in 9th grade when they first came to town. And here I am sitting down in Louisville having lunch with them. Like, where have I come? I looked down. He stepped away one time. He had his phone on the table. And I looked down and the phone lights up. It's like Pat McAfee calling him.
Yeah.
It's like I knew then. It's like I'm in a different place I'm usually at. So,
oh, that's funny. Well, my mother-in-law's in the chat and she's watching this and she wants to know if she can bring her big old Laredo too. So she's only 36 feet long. I'm sure you got room for that too.
Probably the driveway. Yeah.
Yeah.
She might not be in the yard, but we could probably wedge her in the driveway.
This is the year to try different stuff. You know, the Indy 500, this is the year we've got differences and it's not your normal deal. So maybe this is the year we break up some traditions.
And when it comes to parking logistics, there's no better community than Speedway, Indiana.
Agreed.
In accommodating craziness.
Figuring out how to put people in spaces. And one of the interesting features about Speedway that I love to point out to people is when you roll into Speedway, all of a sudden the sidewalks get a car length away from the street.
Yep.
So you can park a car between the street and the sidewalk. Nowhere else will you ever see that happen.
Yeah, we can't park in our yards any other time of the year. You know, code enforcement will come by and knock on our door.
And every fenced in backyard has a gate that's big enough to get a camper through type thing.
Yep.
So,
well, now I will tell you from experience, Pat's very gracious and will share his yard with you. But the city of Speedway will not let you out of his neighborhood because after the race, they shut down every exit to his neighborhood.
Yeah. You are trapped.
I have spent 2 hours trying to get out of his neighborhood.
That's what it takes.
And there's no car. Nobody else is parked in his neighborhood. I mean, you get out there and there's nobody there, but they barricade everything. And if you try to get out, there's police there. Now you can't come out.
Yeah.
I'm an infield guy. So I'm just, when the race is over, everybody's got their own routine and what they do. And they, 250,000 people show up at this race and they all do very similar things year after year after year. And you get into this routine, but we park in that infield, get there. I get in line at 3 a.m. I get in the track. They open the gates at 6. I'm in my spot by 7. I know I got to sober up by race time. And then when the race is over, we usually cook our second round of hamburgers and hot dogs and we're not out of the track until 6 o'clock in the evening anyway. So
wow,
that's the way it goes.
That's so I have to ask the question.
Yes, sir.
So having an RV dealership around race time every year. Well, typically the race is in May. So sometime in March, my phone starts ringing off the hook and it's every race car driver.
That's what I was going to ask.
Hey, do you guys have an RV I can use?
I know that we had a neighbor. I got fortunate enough to get infield camping for the Grand Prix, which I don't get to do this year. And the first year we had a neighbor on the corner. Holcomb. And it was it was a loaner from your dealership, I believe. And it was Doug Bowles.
Yeah.
And so you guys set him up with a camper.
We've done that a few different times. But my question is, through Doug, through some of the race car drivers, 1 year through the Gordon Pipers, I get these infield parking passes. The 1 year with the Gordon Pipers, I had a police escort to get me into the infield. I have not once parked in the infield because you can't get in the infield. So my question is, if you have the infield passes, how do you park in the infield?
I line up on 16th Street at 4 o'clock in the morning, and when the gates open up, I come in and they let me in. My pass gets me in, and then I am in the. Zach joined me for my tailgate last year. It is absolute madness, and it is as long the state police roll through on their golf carts, and as long as nobody's killing anybody, it is pretty much as close to a lawless end as you're going to get.
My campground is like a campground. It's got trees, a little path you pull off the side. I walk into his area and it's like Mad Max. It's like mud holes everywhere. There's just people wandering aimlessly. No idea that there's a track around them. I'm like, and my wife's like, yeah, how does anybody do this? I was like, yeah, we just have a different little life out there in our little quiet area. And so yeah.
But I'm in the track. I can hang out and then I can go to my seats in turn 3 and then I can come back and it's low maintenance. I started out as I would be the guy that walked in. My dad works for Allison Transmission, so I'd park off of 10th and Polko and I'd walk into the track and I'd have my free parking spot. And then I was like, when they finally started selling infield parking spots, I'm like, going to buy one of those and I'm just going to be inside and not have to stress out about anything. Because I used to buy the giant cooler and then have the 1 mile hike up to turn 3 with my cooler. And then I'm like, I can get a car and bring it in and I've got all my stuff with me. So that was better. So as you get older, you start to learn that. And then you say, you know what? I don't want to fight anybody to be able to have my spot on the viewing mount, so I'm going to go ahead and buy some seats. And then the next evolution is going to be, you know what? I have a camper. I don't need this anymore. I've got my seats. I can go out and I can be in Pat's yard or I can be in lot 6 and I can show up in my seats and I'm good to go and I don't have to fight the infield crowd anymore.
I told him the greatest thing about camping at the track is the cannon goes off on race morning and then you go back to bed.
Yeah.
Cause you're in bed. You're like, oh, track's open.
When the cannon goes off, I've been in traffic.
One suggestion, one thing I could think of is trying to get in the infield is hide on 16th somewhere, and when a motorcade goes by, just jump on the back of the line.
So the one year,
might be your best bet.
The one year we were working with the Gordon Pipers, we all met in downtown Indianapolis, and they had a police escort because the Gordon Pipers. Are they still doing that?
Every year they're there.
Yeah,
they're an institution.
Historically they've been doing that, right? I know they used to do the Colts games though too, and I don't think they're with the Colts anymore. That's why I was asking.
Yeah.
So we were set up. We all meet downtown, and they had all the Pipers, and they were going to do this like caravan, and everybody lines up. Police officer in the front, police officer in the back. They had some in the middle at different intersections to wave you through. And right about the time we were turning onto 16th Street, there was literally a police officer runs in the middle of the road. We were about 3 from the back of the caravan. This police officer runs in the middle of the road, starts waving their hands for us to stop right in front of my vehicle. And of course, there goes the rest of the caravan. And there's like 3 of the Gordon Pipers behind us, right?
Right.
So like one of the Gordon Pipers runs out and it's like screaming at me, like, why did you stop? We lost him. And I'm like, there's a police officer standing in front of my car. I'm not going to run him over, And, so we ended up on 16th Street. This was probably 6 o'clock in the morning, maybe just before 6.
Yep.
And, we were probably we got to the old Busch Stadium, and to get from one side of Busch Stadium to the other was like 45 minutes.
You were trapped at that point. You were stuck in.
We
the real
were
traffic.
stuck.
Yeah.
You're not even Speedway yet.
Right.
You're miles away.
We ended up sitting for about 2 hours, and we had suite passes, we had garage pit passes, all that stuff. I'm like, I want to get there.
Yep.
Right. I want to go through and do all the fun stuff that we had the ability to do. And, we ended up parking like 2.5 miles away. and there's like an old furniture store or something on the side of the road, and they're like $10 to park here. We're like, okay, done. It was like now you're a 30-minute,
and all of a sudden you went from the elite to a poor person. Yeah.
Well, I had that's what I'm saying. I had the infield passes. Yeah. But that's what I said. How do you get in there? Cause I've had the infield passes other years, and I'm like, forget it. I'm not even going to try.
Yeah. You just get in line. Once you get up to the gate, that pass will get you in, but you have to suffer through
and just keep pointing at it.
Through the line. Yeah.
I just found you guys talked about parking in yards. If you go on the south side of the track, there's a huge neighborhood there. Anywhere from $10 to $20. You can park there. It's like a 15-20 minute walk to the track. Yep. That's what we've done every year since.
It's a balance. It is a crazy balance between, and this year will be totally different because they're going to have half of the fans there. Maybe. But it's a wild balance between you can park really close and not have much to walk, or you can park further away and outwalk the traffic and actually be able to get home.
Yeah,
right. It's a strange world.
Especially towing. Like I have to wait. I do not want to try and even. I wait till Georgetown. I can see cars just rolling on Georgetown, which is less now because they've shut down and went in Georgetown. Because if you go too early, you might be able to get out. The traffic's not bad, but you don't know where the state police are going to send you.
Right.
Because sometimes, like, I want to go east, and they'll send me, and the next thing I know, I'm like, I'm in Avon. Why am I in Avon? And I'm like, and I'm in Avon, and I'm getting 8 miles a gallon. I want to be going the other way because I want to go home. So yeah, you have to kind of watch. There's an odd ballet getting in and out of the track on race day.
I think that's why a lot of people who are campers, they stay Sunday night and just head out Monday.
Well, the tip I got one time that is proven pretty accurate is don't go east and west on race day. Always go north and south.
Yep. When I leave the track from the infield, they always send me out 16th Street, and whether you want to or not, you're going to go east on 16th Street to downtown. So you end up back at Methodist Hospital or at Meridian Street, and then you get to make a decision. That's the first time you can actually decide what you want to do, which is fine because I'm actually heading east and it whatever. But, that's just the pattern.
Pretty much the same set of parkers that hang out in my, yard every year. And cause I've got the campers, and then I got some people that just drive in on race day to park at my, driveway. But
friends or they're clients at this point. They just know. Yeah.
Yeah. Friends, family.
How long have you lived in Speedway?
Be 18 years this fall.
What's the longest tenured person in your parking in your yard?
Oh boy.
Cause that's a whole thing. I mean, there are people that have been camping in the same spot, doing the same thing with the same people.
I'm going to say, cause I met a bunch of, I met Jeremiah through the John Andretti fan page.
Yep.
And, so I know we have 2 people there, Jeff Terry and Kelly. I'd say it's one of those 2. Because this goes back even before we were putting campers in there, because we didn't start doing this until we bought ours like in 2010, I think, was the first year we had campers. And, but yeah, I think it probably goes 2005 or 6 probably when, as far as the longest tenured.
I want to say Pat and I met strangely on the internet, just like I met Guffey in a city park, years ago.
It's true.
I think I met Pat on that message board, probably 2003, 2004.
Yeah, it was early 2000s.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, definitely. And,
Jennifer's in the chat and she says that Kelly was your very first client.
It was Kelly. Thank you.
There you go.
That's my wife. But yeah, it's either Kelly or Jeff. Jeff, he comes in from, Hammond. He's basically a nuclear scientist instructor at, Illinois Tech. So we hear some interesting stories from the gang. And usually that's like what I tell everybody that comes in, and they already know, because usually after the race, everybody gets back to the yard. We just sit and talk because they know that they're not going anywhere.
Yep.
And like I said, usually it clears out in my neck of Speedway at about 2 hours after the checkered flag drops. So that's why I tell anybody that comes in, if you want to leave, you're just going to be sitting. So if you want to sit here and sit or stay here and sit, then, and usually we do, we have, sometimes 15, 20 people just hanging out. We'll have leftovers from the little get together we had Saturday night, and cold brews and waters and all that good stuff, and just talk about the race and who got screwed and
how the hell did Sato win? Nobody understands.
How did Sato win? And thank God Marco didn't win. Oh.
All right. Now we're upsetting the fans. All right. This is the time in the show where we start to work into final thoughts and clean up anything that we missed. So we'll go right to left here. We'll start with producer Chris. Anything you got to promote? Anything you got going on?
Nope. Just the girlfriend and I are going to do a little getaway on Friday.
You need a camper?
I do not. We have an Airbnb. So,
for just $125 a month, you could have a brand new Salem.
Yeah, but I'm going to be attached to that thing for quite a while. And we have other purchases we want to make before that. But yeah, so I'm just going to go to Bloomington, little Nashville for a day or two, and then come back and enjoy 4th of July. Hopefully at Memorial Park. So if you're there, just holler at me and I'll see if I'm there.
Very good. Will we be in overtly patriotic stuff? You going to be in uniform?
No.
You're not going to?
No, probably not. My plan is.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
I hate you already. My plan is to actually park at the far end of the soccer field and then put my Tacoma in 4-wheel drive and drive right up that hill at the end of the show so I can just go right on 3.
It's an anti-American vehicle to drive. You're supposed to drive in a Chevrolet.
It's made in America, baby.
Day. Is that a Princeton, Indiana vehicle? Where's that made?
I don't know. All I know is made in America.
I know mine's made in Texas. I don't even know where yours is made.
So
that's just sad. All right. Anyway, Rusty, thank you for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a good time.
What if people want to get hooked up with a camper? How do they find you? Where do they go? What do they do?
Well, we're on the east side of Indianapolis. Probably we got a Greenfield address, but we're on I-70 Mount Comfort Road, pretty much halfway between Indy and Greenfield. And we have, like we talked about, we have everything from maybe a $5,000 used trailer up to $500,000 diesel pushers, and kind of everything in between. And right now we have about half of what we used to have, but we still have a huge inventory. I mean, I think 250 some units in stock available for sale is probably more than anybody else in the state. So
can still probably find something for you.
You can still find something. Yeah. You might have to compromise a little bit more, but still something.
You guys have a lot of real lights. I noticed that on the way.
Yeah. Small trailers.
Nice small trailer they have. I would recommend one. Yes.
That's it. All right. And Pat, what are we promoting? What do you got?
I got not a whole lot.
What's the website?
smalltrailerenthusiast.com.
And what do you guys do over there? I know you've had the opportunity to tour manufacturers. You've done reviews on products.
It's just a blog that I started about 9 years ago after, I first got into this, and I just thought, well, you know what? There's like nothing out there that kind of, is a resource for other people, looking for trailers on the smaller end of things. So I just created this website, blog, whatever you want to call it, where I write.
We call that a media empire. If you're in the podcasting world, you talk big.
Well, we'll talk about my Google AdSense decline here some other show. But anyway, but yeah, I basically do, if I see a trailer out there I kind of I'll do like a little review on it. But, the big part of the website are the links that I've got posted. And if you go there It's on a manufacturers tab up at the top. I've got like over 200 links to various manufacturers that, you know, it either helps or hinders your decision making, because then, you know, it's like going into some of these restaurants where it has every type of food on the menu. Then you don't know what to eat. But, so yeah, it's mainly just a resource for, kind of like-minded small trailer people, and, check it out. And, I've got my email on there. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email and I'll give you my opinions on whatever you got.
Very cool. Zachary.
I've got nothing to push. I'll do the same thing I always push. L&K Produce. Their produce stands open. They're doing the honor system after 6:00. I went by there and left with all kinds of beef.
You mean you can actually buy a watermelon at 1 a.m. in this town finally?
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And let's be honest, that's the best social distancing plan ever, because you can go there when nobody's there and get your watermelon, throw your money in the door slot, and
You have to make sure you have the proper cash.
Yeah, they had plenty, because I picked up a beef box and said, I'll take 20 pounds of ground beef, and they're like, got it. So I think the beef boxes might be a little backed up, but they've got stuff in there to go buy. So
it's good stuff. I enjoy it. We, last weekend, or was it 2 weekends ago, Sarah? I don't remember anymore. We got ourselves an L&K beef box. I looked in the freezer and it looks very full. So it sounds like we're doing very well. I don't know. We have the meats, just like Arby's.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much. I hope everybody enjoyed this. It's a little bit of diversion. You guys are going into Independence Day weekend, and I thought that talking about the RV lifestyle and maybe a change in the COVID world of a different hobby to get into would be something interesting. So thank you very much, Pat and Rusty, for joining us, and producer Chris, as always, for showing up, except for last week, and Zach, thank you for coming in on 42 minutes notice. That's amazing.
I tried.
Supposed to be back on next Thursday with Dakota, and I don't know what we have planned. We'll figure something out.
Thank you for listening to the Boss Hog of Liberty, which is part of the We Are Libertarians Network. I am Chris Spangle, and I am the founder of this network, and I invite you to listen to all of our shows, which you can find at WeAreLibertarians.com or by searching for these in your podcatcher. The flagship show is the We Are Libertarians podcast, where we apply libertarian principles to current events. The Brian Nichols Show is a conversation amongst Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Independents, as they talk about what is happening in the news. And we have many other podcasts like The Chris Spangle Show, Upward, The Cost, Raw Audio Politics, Miranda's World, and Tad Talk, which is quite a ride. So check all of these out. Go to WeAreLibertarians.com and you can check out all of our great podcasts. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Get our other shows at WeAreLibertarians.com.